Hello everybody, Nettie here. We are going to do a quick tutorial on how to open up or maybe even close your neck loop. Usually with the neck loop, they should be able to get their head in, and this part should fall about mid-chest, and oftentimes this gets covered up by the feathers, so it might look tight, but usually it's just because it's settled in with the feathers. As long as you can easily get 2 fingers underneath the strap, then you know that it's tight enough. But just in case, if you get a harness at home and you really want to either make it tighter so it sits up higher on their chest, or you want to give them more room, we're going to just demonstrate how to do that. It's a pretty easy fix to do, even if you don't have a whole lot of sewing experience. You should be able to do this. So some of the items you'll need most likely are scissors. I recommend using a seam ripper. Usually most sewing kits will have a little version of one of these in it. This is, and then because our machine uses a fixed stitch, so these stitches won't come unraveled. If you cut them to make them looser, you are going to have to seal them with something. So 2 of the glues that we use here, I know this one's kind of old here, but this one's usually called Sewer's Aid. They sell this at pretty much any craft or fabric store. And what this does is it's like a fray lock. It helps prevent fabric and thread from fraying. Otherwise, I use just a little bit of a permanent glue that can go through the wash without it coming undone. We typically use one that's for vinyl, fabric, and plastic, just because it seems to work better than glues that are intended for fabric. So I'm going to show you guys pretty much how to go ahead, and we're going to open this up first. So you want to make sure you don't cut the fabric. That's probably the hardest part about being able to open this up here. I suggest that if you think you know how much wider it needs to be, then it might be a good idea to make a mark for yourself. So that way you know how far down you want to go. And depending on what type of harness you have, you may or may not have a snap port here. Occasionally, with harnesses that have snap ports on them, like this one here, if you have a snap port here, then we recommend not going any further down to the snap port. Otherwise, that snap port will come out. If you want to make it bigger and you're okay with the snap port coming out, then by all means you can go lower. But you just got to make sure you don't go down too far. Otherwise, you'll lose your snap. Alright, so here I went ahead, I made a little mark, and what you need to do, make sure we're close and focused here, is you want to hold the pointy end down and the little, usually it's a red or a yellow dot, upwards. And start from the top and just try to get it under the first couple of threads. You can check by looking on the sides to make sure you're not pulling up any fabric with it. And you can go ahead and pull that through and cut it. And then we can do the same. If you're confident, then you can go through and rip right through the whole thing. I usually can do several at a time, like that. Alright, so say now this is where we want it to go. Then you'll have to pull out the threads from the other side. And then you'll have usually one long piece in the back. So I recommend that before cutting this, that you give it a knot. Just go ahead and tie it up 2 or 3 times. It's always better to make sure it's securely in place rather than having it completely unravel for you. So I went ahead, I knot 3 times in a row. I guess just habit. But then you can go and you can snip off that extra piece of thread. So now that we got it more open, now we just have to make sure we got all the threads out here. There's a little piece left. Now we have to do something to make sure this doesn't come undone. So this is where your glue or your fray block would come in handy. So all you'd have to do is just make sure, get this one here, just a little drop to help keep your threads in place. And you can do the other side then too. So usually with Sewer's Aid, it takes about maybe a half an hour to dry. I would recommend, if you use any type of glue that has a strong smell, that you wash the item first before you put it back on your pet. We like to use products that don't have a really harsh smell or are not full of weird chemicals. But some glues can be a bit weird in their smell, I guess, a bit strong. Okay, so now that I've shown you guys how to open that up, so it's pretty easy. Now I can show you guys what would be the best way of shortening your strap. So I'm going to grab a needle here, which is also pretty easy. This is also very similar to how we recommend people alter their straps at home. Oops, I think I gotta cut it here. Hold on 1 second. There we go. If you're not good at threading a needle, or if you're like me and you can't see it really super well, most little sewing kits will come with a little needle threader. Usually it looks like a coin on the top, pressed metal with a little head on it. I don't think I actually own one because I don't use them. But essentially it looks like a metal coin, usually with the head stamped on them, and then it has a loop at the end, and the loop part you stick through the eye of the needle, wrap your thread in, and then pull the little device out. So it can come in handy. Don't need a really big piece of thread. I usually, again, I knot mine 3 times at the end to make a nice little ball. If you only tie it once or twice, there's a potential it could pull through the fabric because this fabric is stretchy. And so sometimes the fabric can stretch around a net or threads and allow it to go through. So then again, if you want to try and make it tighter, you can, while it's on your pet, you might want to make a note of how much more you want to bring it in. So let's say, for example, we needed to make it about 1 inch shorter. I then, again, also recommend that you mark it so you know where you want. I use these. These are great. These are just non-toxic, washable liquid chalk markers. They work really good. They don't stain the harnesses, especially if you use light colors like these. They wash out really easily, no smell, and they're not harmful to pets. So now that we know where we want to sew, you won't be able to get it that looks exactly like this because this is a machine stitch. This is not something that's particularly easy to get by hand, but you don't really need a whole lot of thread to hold it together. I recommend starting on this side here where the buckle is on the top, because this is the inside. This is the part that would actually touch your pet's chest. So that way if you do have a knot, it won't be visible on the outside. So you just pull it through, and then when you come to the other side here, you would just go across. Like that. And then I recommend, staying fairly close to the edge, and to make sure you go all the way through the fabric on both sides. That's just to make sure you don't accidentally miss the fabric. Sometimes you can grab the top layer and not get the needle through the bottom layer. But here we go. I like to space them about maybe 1/2 centimeter apart. Try to keep them close. So usually I can do this pretty quickly, but I'm trying to slow down here for you guys. Alright, so we've made it to our mark here. And of course, if you are worried about having enough thread to be able to tie, you can of course use a longer piece. Just for me, I'm comfortable with using very small ends of thread. But then I would also then go ahead and tie it off. There we go. Then you can give it a little snip. Be sure not to snip below your knot. You want to keep it above your knot. Most stitches usually have just a little bit of a piece sticking out on the end, and that's perfectly fine. So now that you've got it shorter here, and even though we did a knot, if you do have a glue or in this case a fray block, I recommend just going ahead and putting a little bit in there. It doesn't hurt, and it'll help keep your stitches in line. And if you are a person who's worried about the way it looks, or if you have a little bit more skill in sewing, you can go back and forth and fill that in even more with more passes with the thread. If you're comfortable using a long piece, you can even sew up to the point you want and then bring it down, come back, and then go back up. That just to get more stitches in line. But if you're looking for a simple fix, usually just about a stitch here, every maybe about every 5 millimeters or so, about a half a centimeter, and that will make it a little bit smaller of a hole. Now realize when you do have a smaller hole, it's gonna sit up a lot higher on their chest. So this will probably now sit above their chest, right below their neck. In which case then you probably will have to adjust your straps to be a little bit looser so they fit okay. And then if you open up the stitch, just make sure that you try it on your pet before you go out anywhere to make sure you didn't make it too wide. Sorry there, I needed a drink real quick. But yeah, you want to make sure you didn't come down too far. If you come down too far when you're taking your pet out for a walk, if they're pulling against a leash and they want to play, you might end up with the shoulders being just popping through like that. And in some cases, some ducks can walk out of their harnesses, especially smaller ducks or lean ducks like runners. Our runners have done it before, where they had their little harness on, and the neck loop was a little too big, and they just slid right out and walked right out of the harness. So I recommend testing it in a home first, in a safe spot, just to make sure you didn't go too big on it. So I hope that helps, so you guys can see what to do. With items that are handmade like this, there's always bound to be little adjustments that you can make here and there. It is possible to ask a tailor to do these things for you, and we do offer alterations. If you don't feel comfortable making a fix like this, or shortening straps, make sure you contact us through our webpage, which is www.partyfowlpets.com. And click on contact us, and you can send us a message, and we can let you know about alterations and what we could possibly do to help. With alterations, though, we strongly recommend that you talk to us first and let us know what it is you need for us to do so we can improve it for you. If we get an item in the mail that we're not prepared for, to be safe, we actually dispose of them. We don't like to open them up just in case there's any germs, or if the harness wasn't washed before coming to us if it was used. Even if your pets are not sick or they never show any signs of symptoms for anything, they could potentially carry something that can either harm the humans in our family or our elderly ducks in our family. So whenever anybody needs an alteration, we really need you guys to contact us, and then we'll give you the procedure on how to wash and dry your item, and then how to package it in order to send it back to us. Our alterations are free, and when it comes time to shipping the item back to you, we cover that. We do that for free. I hope that helped. I hope that gives you guys a few more options at home. That way you don't have to worry about sending it in or waiting any longer for it, or having to pay for any extra postage to send it back to us. These are very easy fixes, and they tend to work really well. So, but yeah, hope that helps. And if you guys ever have any requests of more minor alteration videos, feel free to contact us and let us know, and we can make a video or two to give you an idea of how to make some minor fixes.